Well, joining me now from Sydney is Professor Ben Saul. He's the UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms while countering terrorism. He's also the Challis Chair of International Law at the University of Sydney. Really good to have you with us, Professor. From an international law perspective, does the US capture of a sitting head of state on foreign soil violate the UN's Charter's prohibition on the use of force?
It's absolutely illegal and lawless under international law. The UN Charter for 80 years has prohibited the use of force against any other country except in self-defense. And of course, Venezuela had not attacked the United States. It's what we call an armed attack by the US on Venezuela, giving Venezuela, in fact, the right of self-defense. And it's also the international crime of aggression by the responsible US war leaders, President Trump, the Secretary of War, as well as the US military commanders. And of course, at the end of the Second World War, the Allies executed German and Japanese war leaders for prosecuting wars of aggression.
Washington is invoking self-defence under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Does that legal justification stand in this case, given the fact that there didn't seem to be an imminent threat of attack from Venezuela to the United States?
Well, the US legal justifications are all over the place because, of course, they've also said that this was simply a law enforcement operation, a kind of policing type arrest of Maduro. And that, of course, is nonsense because this was a military attack. At least 80 people, we think, were killed in this strike. And of course, Venezuela was not attacking or about to attack the United States. The US has argued that because Venezuela was allegedly supporting drug trafficking into the United States through narco gangs or cartels, that this somehow amounted to an invasion of the US. But in international law terms, that's absolute rubbish. There is no support for that amongst any international lawyer worth their salt. In fact, there's near universal consensus worldwide that this is an illegal attack on Venezuela and a grave breach of one of the most important or fundamental rules of international law of the last century.
How worried are you then, Professor, about the precedent that this sets if powerful states can claim law enforcement or counter-terrorism grounds to seize foreign leaders?
This is extremely alarming, and we know in recent days that the US has been threatening other countries with the same treatment. Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, even Greenland in Europe, a NATO ally in Denmark. And of course, this also sends a signal to other authoritarian countries that if they want something, they should take it as well. This returns us to the colonial era of gunboat diplomacy, where there were no rules, there was no prohibition on the use of force, and if you wanted to take resources of another country or depose their leaders, you could do it at your whim. And I think that's a really dangerous world for all of us to live in. It's also an incredibly unpredictable and unstable world because, as we've seen from recent interventions, whether in Iraq or Libya or elsewhere, it's really hard to know how these kinds of interventions will turn out. They rarely end well. They often descend into chaos and struggles for power and insurgency. And I think we're only at the start of Venezuela. And I think the Americans are dreaming if they think that this is somehow going to be a smooth transition. It's not a real transition, by the way, because of course, the new president is part of the old guard, part of the Maduro regime. So this isn't about democracy or human rights. This is about an oil grab by the United States.
As UN Special Rapporteur on counterterrorism, are you concerned that this potentially blurs the line between legitimate law enforcement and unlawful military action?
Well, international law is super clear on this. No country is allowed to exercise law enforcement authority by arresting people in any other country unless that country's government consents to that operation. This is part of sovereignty. Every country has a right to control their own territory to the exclusion of action by other governments. So whether you call it law enforcement or military action, it's all the same. It's illegal. It's either it's a prohibited use of force. It's in this case an armed attack and also aggression, but it's also an infringement of the protection of sovereignty of foreign countries and what we call a violation of the principle of non-intervention in the affairs of the foreign political affairs of other governments.
Okay, Professor Ben Saul, we'll have to leave it there. Really good to get your thoughts on this issue. Thank you so much for joining us.